In fact, the whole description, 102.28 to 29, both the sentences are there. Great nature came to her recovered child. Now he is describing the great nature. I reigned in a kingdom of a nobler kind than man can build upon dull matters soil. What human civilization cannot build, it is that which nature has built already here. This whole place is built by nature herself. And it is there, it is opulent, noble kingdom. It is there I live, see. I reign in a kingdom of a nobler kind than man can build upon dull matter soil. I met the frankness of the primal earth. I enjoyed the intimacy of infant God. The early creatures, early living beings, animals, birds, trees, flowers, and all that thing. They are the infants of the gods. I have been intimate with them, with the trees and forests and the whole nature there. In the great tapestried chambers of a state, free in a boundless palace, I had. This is my palace. You may be living in a royal palace in Madura, but this is my palace. This is my greatness. This is my opulence. And I'm inviting you here. And the whole discussion follows like that. And then again, in the same canto further up, 103.34 onward. High beauty's visitants, my inmates were 34. So he's describing all the people who come and visit there. But I caught for some eternal eye the sudden kingfisher flashing into a darkling pool, a slow swan silvering the shore lake, a shape of magic whiteness sailed through dream, leaves trembling with the passion of the wind, and wandering wings nearing from infinity, they're coming from infinity. Lived on the tablets of my inner sight. It is they who are spreading on my canvas. Lived in the tablets of my inner sight. Mountains and trees stood there like thoughts from God. So these are not material mountains. They are the thoughts of God. They're rising up like that, you see. The whole place is like that, you see. That is how he's describing his place to Savitri. And later on, of course, I give you the number 34, 39. Then again we have another description, 106.26. Now here, this is the book of fate, the opening part of the book of fate, the word of fate. And Narad has come down from his home in paradise. He is sitting with the royal host, Ashwapati, and the queen. And Narad is singing for 1 hour about the mystery and the marvel about to take birth. He is singing for 1 hour about the marvel that is about to take birth here. And as he sings, Savitri walks into the palace after meeting Satyavan in the Shalva woods. And Narad casts his glance on her and then starts asking in amazement, in wonderment, who is this who has come? The bride, beautiful, golden. Who is this who has come? Where from has she come? He kind of asks questions like that. And then he says, earth has gold-hued expanses, shadowy hill, 106.24, shadowy hill, that cow the dreaming phantom heads in night, and guarded in a cloistered joy of woods, screened banks sink down into felicity, seized by the cowed incessant yearning hand, and ripple passion of the upgazing stream, and cool-lipped murmurs of its pure embrace. They lose the souls on beds of trembling reeds. And all these are mysterious presences in which some spirit's immortal bliss is felt. Spirit's immortal bliss is felt in this presence. And they betrayed the earthborn heart to joy. There hast thou paused, he is stating to Savitri. Yes, I know, I have seen from above. It is there at that place you have stopped. In that Shalva bush, it is there you have stopped for a while. There hast thou paused, and marveling born eyes, unknown, or heard a voice that forced the life to strain its rapture to thy listening soul. Yes, it is there that you have stopped, and you heard some voice there in that place. Yes, I have seen that. Or if my thought could trust this shimmering gaze, it would say, Thou hast not drunk from an earthly cup. Yes, you have been drinking joy from a heavenly cup. Thou hast not drunk from an earthly cup. But stepping through azure curtains of the morn, thou wast surrounded on a magic verge in brighter countries than man's eyes can bear. Brighter countries than man's eyes can bear. It is there we have gone and paused for a while. That is how he's describing the place, you see. And then we have got again, and goes on further, of course, 136.1 to 136.3. Now, this is a picture where the death had occurred in the Shalva forest under a kingly tree. He died under a kingly trunk, Shalva. His head is in the lap of Savitri. And then death comes and picks up his soul, plucks out the soul, and he's there. Savitri gets out of her physical body, and in her subtle body, her spirit follows death, behind death, who is carrying the spirit of Satyavan with him. And then how Savitri is going through the surroundings, through the nature, that is what we have got in the description. 136.1 and 2 and 3, these three sentences. At first, in a blind stress of woods, the whole woods she is describing, it is through them she is passing. At first, in a blind stress of woods, she moved strange inhuman paces on the soil, journeying as if upon an unseen road. Around her, on the green and imaged earth, the flickering screen of forest ringed her steps. So the screen of forest, she is walking, and that sound is ringing in the forest there, you see. Around her on the green and imaged earth, the flickering screen of forest ringed her steps. Its thick, luxurious obstacle of boughs, she is going in a subtle body. But the boughs, the trees, they are kind of making an obstacle for her passage to go out into the subtle world. You see. This, of course, Yama does not feel. Death does not feel. The spirit of Satyavan does not feel that. Savitri, who is in a subtle body, who has contact with her human physical body, it is she who is feeling the obstacle of the surroundings. As if a kind of a friction is there while she is moving in a subtle body to the place. Around her on the green and imaged the flickering screen of forest ringed her stem. Its thick, luxurious obstacle of boughs, they're coming in the way of her passage. Those boughs besiege her body, pressing dimly through in a rich realm of viscous palpable, and all the murmurous beauty of the leaves, beautiful trees and leaves, all the murmurous beauty of the leaves rippled around her like an emerald robe. But more and more this grew an alien sound as she is moving outward, forward like that. Then this becomes alien. It falls behind the whole place. So this is the brief description of the Shalva forest when Savitri is moving in a subtle body there, you see, spirit. And then we have 158.1, these two sentences. Now the dusk shadowy trees stood close around. See, this is the scene of Satyavan coming back to the earth, Savitri bringing his soul back to the earth, and 158 and the Satyavan and Savitri are now returning to the hermitage, and it is becoming dark in the evening. The whole place is becoming dark in the evening, and they are returning to the hermitage here. So it is that description which we got here in these two sentences. Now the dusk, shadowy trees stood close around because of the darkness of the eve, like dreaming spirits and delaying night. So they are there, still there. They don't want the night to come, but this there, see. The grey-eyed, pensive evening heard their steps. Their Satyavan and Savitri's steps. They are moving, and that evening is hearing their steps walking back to the hermitage. And from all points the cries and movements came of the four-footed wanderers of the night approaching. Four-footed wanderers of the night, birds and bees. Of course, here bees basically. They are walking in the night, you see. Then, so this is what they are doing. And then at the same time, what happens? Something mysterious. Then a human rumor rose, long alien to the solitary days, invading the charmed wilderness of leaves, once sacred to secluded loneliness, with violent breaking of its virgin sleep. Through the screened dusk, it deepened still, and there near, floating of many voices and the sound of many feet, till on the side broken, as if a colored wave upon the eye, the brilliant, strenuous, crowded life of man. Now, this sentence, then a human rumor rose, long alien from that point, apart from the first four lines. Now, this is the description of people from the Shalva kingdom coming to the forest, inviting Satyavan's father, Dyumasena, to come back to Shalva and take in his possession the kingdom. He was driven out, but now they are coming back here and inviting him to come back to Shalva and assume the kingship of the place, you see. So it is these people who are coming here, the army, the ministers, all those elderly advisors, they are coming here, inviting him to return to the palace. That you see. So this is the description of that thing towards the epilogue. You see. See, after the whole story is over, then Dyumasena, of course, his wife, his son, his daughter-in-law, they all go back to the palace and then live there, and then the story ends there, so to say. See here. So this is the description of that Shalva forest where all these people have come, how it was there in the evening, and how they go back. You see. So this is the destined meeting place. This is the destined meeting. Yes, you have something? This is the destined meeting place where all these things are going to happen, and perhaps have happened already. We don't know. So we'll just read the first two lines and then 101.1. I hope I have collected all the related passages. I hope so. I mean, but in case you find something particular, you can add list also. See now the first sentence. But now the destined spot and hour were close. Unknowing, she had neared her nameless goal. This is a very, very mysterious kind of a sentence. And it is full of connotations, charged. Of course, the canto, the book opens with but now. In other words, it had the connection with what had happened earlier. in the previous book, in the previous canto. Savitri was going from place to place, constantly traveling almost for a year in search of her mate. She was not finding anybody anywhere. Is that going to be her fate forever? That she would not find anybody? No. Here is the assurance that, but now she is going to find somebody. Her journey, her quest is over. She is going to succeed in meeting her life's partner here. But now, the destined spot and hour were close. Now, here you got one very powerful word, destined. We have already seen destined. So, both in time and space, spot and hour, both in time and space, the event is fixed. It is bound to happen. It has to happen. It is going to happen. There is no doubt at all about that. It is destined. Who has destined it, etc., etc., that we do not ask that question now at this point. But it has been destined. But now the destined spot and hour were close. Unknowing she had neared her nameless goal. Now there is the beauty here. Savitri is coming to the meeting place, the destined place. She is coming at the destined hour, early in the morning around 8 o'clock or so on a fated day. She is coming and going to be there, early in the morning. But she is not in know of that it is going to be here. The spot is fixed, time is fixed, place is fixed, everything is fixed. But she is not aware of it. She knows not. She has no knowledge that she is going to meet somebody here. She has no knowledge at all about that kind of a thing. Why? Then who has destined it, for whom it has been destined, and why this lady, this girl would not know it, you see. She has no knowledge of it at all, you see. Basically, destined would convey something which has been decided by somebody else at a higher power, at a higher level, up there or whatever you want to call it, it has to happen. Fixed. In the transcendent, we are seeing the passages. For instance, the very first passage in the second canto, what we are seeing, it has been destined already. Destined by whom? By the divine power himself. The divine Savitri up there in the transcendent. She is going to decide everything about human Savitri here. She has fixed up everything. She has seen the whole thing. She is deciding. So she has decided, destined the whole thing here completely. And it is this human Savitri who has taken the human birth. She does not know that it is she who is going to meet here. She has no knowledge of that. Obviously, Savitri has not done any yoga so far. She has not the knowledge of the spiritual and the occult worlds yet. She is human. It is through the power of love her spirit and her psychic being will awake. When she is going to meet Satyavan, it is in that power of love her psychic being will come forward and see and know everything. Not until then. So that is going to happen later on. But at this particular point, before she meets him, she is coming here without knowing where she is going, what is going to happen here. That veil of ignorance is there around human Savitri, and she has to go through the whole process. In fact, we could also say that when Savitri was traveling from place to place, almost for a year, through different kingdoms and lands and hermitages and all that kind of a thing. She was not knowing anything about herself, what is going to happen. She was just traveling almost like human Savitri. Although she was driven from within, all right, she is not aware of it. There is a guide who is telling her, go like this, go like that. She is prompted, she is going like that without knowing it. There is a presence from above who is taking care of everything there. But Savitri personally is not yet aware of all those things. See. The human veil is still there around her. The first thing which is going to happen after meeting Satyavan, that veil will get removed, will disappear. And then there will be that identity. You see. Therefore, unknowing, she had neared her nameless goal. What for she is here? Goal. What is the goal? She has no knowledge of that thing. In other words, the destiny which has destined the whole thing has a certain fixed goal in her mind. In destiny's mind, there is already a goal fixed. That this must happen, this must happen, this must happen. In this sequence, things should follow. Later on, when, of course, as I said just now, when Savitri meets Satyavan, suddenly her psychic being comes out fully and recognizes the whole thing. Also, when Narad makes the pronouncement about the death of Satyavan after 12 months of their marriage, what Narad has really done is he has initiated Savitri into yoga. Narad's statement of the death of Satyavan is not a statement of a fact only. It is a yogic statement which has initiated Savitri on the path of yoga, that's the most important thing. What we would call, so Narad has given to her diksha, initiation, the word to follow yoga. And it is that yoga which Savitri does later on in the 7th book, the book of yoga, you see. Once that book of yoga comes around there, when Savitri does yoga, I mean. In fact, there is also, you will notice later on, when we do that book, the book of yoga, Savitri is given instructions how to follow on the yogic path. At every crucial moment, there is a voice. Savitri, go like this, do like this, do like this, do like this, do like this. She is told at every moment of a crucial process of yoga what she should do, how she should proceed. In other words, it is that destiny through all the stages, meeting Satyavan, Narad coming and initiating her, Savitri getting command from the Supreme Savitri, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. It is all towards that nameless goal. Unknowing she had neared her nameless goal. That is the nameless goal she is going to arrive here. I think we'll stop with that. Or you want to continue? We'll stop with that. We'll take up now, because this is a fairly long theme, next sentence, you see. For through a dress of blind and devious chance is laid upon the work of all-wise fate. Our acts interpret an omniscient force that dwells in the compelling stuff of things, and nothing happens in the cosmic play but at its time and in its foreseen place. Time and place, they are arranged by the all-wise fate. All-wise fate has arranged all those things. And our acts, they are simply mechanically, so to say, following those steps. Our acts interpret what has been already written for us. That we see. Laid upon the work of all wise. Interpret the omniscient force that omniscient force essentially stands here for the all-wise fate. She is all-wise. She is omniscient. She is the force also. And she is going to do all those things. The destined place, spot, etc., that destiny is governed by this omniscient force. And she is going to lead you. We shall take that thing later on, next time. Thank you very much. So,